gods, I hated cultures. I hated the heat. I hated the dust and the thick sweat of it. Even before I knew that other worlds existed, I cursed the gods for making my home so unbearable. There's a reason why religions prosper in deserts. There's nothing else to do but ponder the misery. I used to sit in the shadow of my father's house, squatting as the air shimmered, and I'd wait for scorpions to scuttle out of the glare. I'd catch them in my bare hands and hold them up, watching them wriggle. I'd pluck their limbs off one by one. And sometimes I'd get stung. Sometimes I wouldn't. It was a kind of game, though not a very good one. Once a sting made me feverish for a month, leaving me boiling on my mat inside with visions and shaking. I might have died. I didn't care much either way. Once I'd recovered, I was sitting right back out in the porch waiting for the next one to scamper into rain. Ever since then, I've played the same game. Get close to the danger. See how long you can last before it bites you. It doesn't matter which town that was. I can barely remember it myself. They were all the same, thick with filth and haze and stink of perspiration and refuse. My parents were exasperated with me. They wanted me to learn a trade and get ahead, something useful to do. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to be rich without trying. I wanted to have slaves and concubines. I wanted to play my scorpion game with people. For a long time, it wasn't clear how I would be able to achieve that, but fate had a way of leading me into opportunity. I had noticed, being an observant sort, that the Covenant had become the kind of organization I might do well in. It is fashionable now, among those who still pretend to keep records and tell histories, to think of the Covenant as some wellspring of piety, the precursor to the fundamental religion that came after. Or perhaps it was in some places. Maybe in Wraight, they did things properly. Out in the provinces, though, the priests had begun to develop a reputation. They drank. They gambled. They were violent, and they used that violence to gather up riches. Even the devout knew that the tithes they paid didn't all end up embellishing temples. The whole edifice was like a spoiled aquifer, with a cold and oily heart locked away from those searching for the light of the sun. So you can understand the attraction. I could see myself in those robes, with a palace of my own, where a fountain would tinkle in the courtyard and a chamber full of young things would lounge around in silks and count my coins. There was a young man in my settlement, a pious one who would ink some words of the holy books onto his face and shaven head. Or every day before dawn, he would apply more henna, rewriting the sacred glyphs with only the aid of a polished silver bell for reflection. For this, he was considered something of an inspiration in our fly-blown town. Even my own mother, fat and lazy slutton, if ever there was one who noticed his diligence. Why can't he be more like him, she would complain, picking at her fingernails and watching me sitting idly in the porch. Oh, why can't you be more like EREBUS? You'll see, thoughts like this have a terrible power. I took her words to heart. I pondered them, and I thought to myself, why can't I be more like EREBUS? I was thinking the same thing as I garroted the young man. I might have even said the words out loud as I twisted the string and watched his eyes bulge and pop. It was the first time I killed a living soul. God, it was sweet. My heart heart was pumping, my face was glowing. The more his life ebbed away, the more I felt my own burgeoning. By the time I let his body drop into the alleyway, I was positively singing inside. The sensation didn't last long. There was the tedious business of disposing of the body and then rooting through his belongings to get what I needed, and turning back on my birthplace and setting out into the great dust. But I couldn't stay in a place where he and I were both known. I never once regretted it. I walked out under the southern gate, the stars rising in the heat of the day, wearing a dead man's robes and with a dead man's script inked neatly on my own shaven head. Well, there you go. There is the irony. The marks on my flesh, the ones that mark me out as me, were never really mine. I wore them after that to ensure my stolen name and persona were never questioned in time. I forgot their origins. They began to care more about what I was writing. By the time I reached for the tattooist's needle, the words had changed, and the act was more than one of disguise. Originally, then, it was all just lies. So, what was my original name? Just like the name of the place where I was born, that genuinely doesn't matter. I have become like a demon nurturing a secret moniker that only the Imperium echoes. I certainly will not tell you some things even the gods don't know. There you go. There is the irony. The marks on my flesh, the ones that mark me out as me, were never really mine.